Why can't Black Africans copy and paste already existing technology? You know, I know, and everyone knows that Africa is the definition of poverty. The area where we disagree is who caused that poverty. Africans would have you believe that the white man is the reason for all their problems, including their poverty level. As you already know, I vehemently disagree. All of that aside, the pertinent question should be, why can't Black Africans copy and paste already existing inventions from white and East Asians, given that their educational systems are exactly a copy of the British, French, and Portuguese curriculum? A typical African home is 100% built with tools made or imported outside Africa. What's hard to copy a window, copy a shower, copy nails, and every other tools needed to build a home? What's so hard to use your endowed arable land with no adverse weather to grow your own food? What's so hard about forming a committee to design your city and plan it to reflect your culture? Structures in Africa lack style, authenticity, or identity. Why use a Dulux or other imported paint brand intended for the winter climate on a structure where the year-round average temperature is 35 degrees? Only for it to peel. Go to buildings and offices in Africa and see how the paint are peeling off. Imagine a scenario where the various African countries use the funds that their leadership usually steal from their coffers and cut off all the bureaucracies, the many branches of police, the unnecessary institutions, and employ competent Chinese, white British, white American, Japanese, or white German to take charge of scaling up farming, infrastructure, healthcare, and to teach local engineers and scientists how to reverse technology and conduct researches. After 10 years of learning from them, follow that pattern to continue the progression. Don't you think that would change the various African countries instead of running around beating your chest how you invented everything, how everyone else hates you, and how racism has impacted you so much that you can't even grow out of your little emotions? Don't you think if an African leader were to go to the European Union, go to the USA, go to Japan, South Korea, and say to them, please, we don't know what we are doing. Could you help us and send some professionals in A, B, C, or D categories to educate and help us become better in the areas that we fall short, instead of giving us handout? Do you really think that the Europeans, American, Japanese, or Korean would say no? In fact, they'll be touched by their gesture. Nobody wants Africans to suffer, stay poor and underdeveloped, because if they remain poor and underdeveloped, it will only be a burden to the rest of the world, especially the developed world, as they will pour in illegal immigration en masse into these countries. What the developed world wants to see are African tourists, not African illegal immigrants with no skills, who they now call migrants instead of what they are, illegal immigrants. Africa has coal, abundant trees and forests, fertile land, rubber, excess rainfall, and endless sunshine, with everything else required to copy and paste already invented technology. In fact, Africans should be in the driver's seat because they can correct all the mistakes the West made as it industrialized by simply copying and improving Western inventions. Instead, Africa is copying the worst from the West and ignores the overwhelmingly fantastic Western inventions. The way Black Africans or Black people in general get triggered by my content is beginning to reinforce the narrative that perhaps their current situation is the peak of what they can achieve. This may be their reality, thus trying to make them into a developed or industrialized culture may be ignorant. It's like asking Europeans and East Asians to urinate in public and disregard their institution. That'd be naive and ignorant, because it is not their culture or state of mind. I have reviewed Africa and Black people thoroughly, and I don't see people with any intention to change their state. Black people are happier than white people and East Asians. They are more sociable, have lower suicide rate, party and celebrate more, and they can make the shift from boredom to exuberance. These are qualities of people who are uncomfortable with their current state, but those of people who are thriving. We may be expecting too much from a culture that has reached its peak. Just like when a business reaches a saturation point, growth stagnates and pivoting then becomes the only pathway forward. I've seen videos on YouTube claiming that Africans have actually progressed faster than the West did. Then they compared population growth, GDP, and lifespan with those of the 60s and even early African era. Listen, guys, Africa's lifespan increase is due to Western advancement in medicine, which they hand out to Africans for free. Its population growth is due to the same Western advances in medicine made available for free, which have decreased mortality rate, thereby skyrocketing birth rate. Its GDP growth, if you want to call it that, fine, is due to Western discovery of mineral resources, support for mining, and alignment of the African market with the world. Black Africans have done nothing on their own to warrant praise. In other words, a toddler who is well fed and looked after isn't told that they're doing well. Their parents are told that they're doing a good job. What this narrative projects is a cycle of praise for a never-ending dependence that is crippling the Africans who may have reached the peak of their advancement. There are over 500 universities in Black Africa, excluding white-belt South Africa. How many have produced world-class engineers, scientists, IT geniuses, or novel findings that have gone on to revolutionize the world? None have even managed to copy and paste already existing technologies. How could you not see that? The shoes you're wearing, your toothpaste, your watch, your tap, your phones, medicine, books, cameras, and even the things you use to cook are imported. People with brains will have to review their governance and system around their educational system and study why is there such an unprecedented degree of dependency. Then they'll come up with a plan to reverse and correct this. Why do you think they don't do this in Africa? Because they may have reached the peak of their intelligence. The Africans are happy the way they are. We should stop bothering them by trying to compare them against a culture that wants to improve. When I was in primary school in Central Africa, the first time I came in contact with a white person was when they came to our school to vaccinate us, to save us. I still have the mark, my arms. They came around 3 or 4 times during my time in primary school. I spent about 7 years in primary school. They did it happily, freely, and proudly. The white man's generosity increased the black global population, and his intervention into Africa brought black people from the fringes of the jungle into the urban living that we now see in the majority of Africa. However, for a culture to evolve and inherent abilities, those two cannot be taught overnight. It takes generation or acculturation. Africans haven't got this yet. Let's assume that Africans have reached their peak and the data is pointing to the scary potential decrease of the white population by half or even less to about 300 to 350 million in 100 years, whilst the black population would hit 4 billion. Japan, Korea, China, and even India would continue decreasing with more old people than young. The world would be left with an overwhelming African population that can't even make a printer or a phone charger. That is a threat to humanity. The Arabs and Islam are another trouble altogether. They make nothing either, and their religion is so scary that even when my flight passes through an Islamic country's airspace, I panic. I'd rather live in Christian Black African than live in a world with Islam. If you think we're wrong, if you think I missed anything, please leave them in the comment section below. And also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.